Good morning, Rockingham, and welcome to the feed. It's September 5th, and here we are with Marty and David, and we're going to talk it up for
Indeed.
a half hour.
Half hour.
Brace yourselves,
Brace
people.
yourselves.
We are on a roll today.
They
We've
are
already
on a
talked
roll.
about The
They've gone from
Godfather.
Trump to
And
the
Donald
Godfather
Trump.
Yeah.
to
Bob
Rome,
Woodward's
Kelly.
book.
Yep, but we're not going to talk about that today.
Roman Empire burning. First of
Yeah.
all, we
On
are.
an upbeat note.
No, we do have some events. You have some events first.
Yes, I have the runs.
To which I said earlier,
Okay.
it's a
I actually was
problem,
like,
isn't it?
that's a good one.
Yes, there are a ton of runs coming up here at the end of September. On September 29th, we have the Front Porch Half Marathon.
An 8 mile.
And 8 Mile, that's true. And
That's a
so
big one.
that's like the second or third year that the
I
8
think
Mile's
it's
been going.
actually the third year of the 8 mile. I think it's the fourth year of the marathon, I think.
Yep, so it's not too early to sign up for that. You can get on their website, Front Porch Halfmarathon.com.
.com.
Yeah. And then after that, we have the Pumpkin
We
Run.
have the pumpkin run.
You want to talk about the Pumpkin Run?
Sure, it's an obstacle course. Are there 10? I'm not actually sure how many obstacles there are this year.
That's one of the draws of this event is
You
don't
can
know how
find
many
out how many
obstacles.
obstacles there are.
Somewhere between
But-
6 and 20.
But you run with a pumpkin. You can run in a team. You can run solo.
Yes.
And you must keep the pumpkin with you and not damage the pumpkin.
And you
Otherwise
can name
have
your
to-
pumpkin.
You could name your pumpkin.
It's like what was that?
That Tom
shipwreck
Hanks
thing with
movie?
Tom Hanks.
Right, Wilson.
Wilson.
You
can
can
name your pumpkin Wilson or some
Spalding.
other
Spalding.
something. And so that's the Pumpkin Run, and that's October 7th.
Right, and that's
And
at
that's-
the Saxon River Rec.
Saxons River Rec by the Bellows Falls Rotary Club. Be there.
Be there.
All right, and then not last but not least is the D Run, which is another big Saxons River cross country sort of wilderness 5K. It's a
Yep.
trail through
It's
the
a
woods.
challenging 5K.
Yeah,
It really is.
it really is.
It's up at Macri's house up on top of Paradise Hill. It's earlier this year. I think they may have done it earlier last year too. I missed the event last year. It used to be the last Sunday of October. Now they're moving it to Saturday, and they're moving it to the middle of the month. So they're hoping that gets more participation. Plus, usually by the last week in October, there's no real foliage.
Yeah, that's true.
So the view should be much nicer.
And that's the D Run. If you want to find out about the D Run, you have to go to the D Foundation page on the web.
Yep, it's
So
good. It's
look at that.
definitely a challenge.
Yes,
Actually,
October
all
13th.
of those are a challenge.
Yeah.
Are they all one's a fundraiser for Rotary, the pumpkin run. The D Foundation benefits.
The D Foundation.
Foundation
It's a medical.
Yeah, they do things for people with disabilities.
Yeah.
So, and then the Front Porch Half is they're raising money for local activities that children participate in.
Drug prevention.
Like drug
Yeah.
prevention. Like last year, they
Basically.
gave money to the
Friends
Friends
for
for
Change.
Change. Okay, what else is going on?
Well, we have the Women's Club. They're back on their meeting schedule. So their first meeting of this season is Tuesday, September 11th at 1:30 p.m. They meet at the United Church of Christ, and they have they have two speakers. They have Deb Brooks and Donna Dawson, and they're going to speak about Westminster Cares. And I believe the Women's Club is always accepting new membership. It's quite an active group of ladies that seem to do things very quietly, so you don't realize
Yeah,
what they do.
we have a brand new bench
Yeah.
up in front of the health center that they contributed this summer. It's a granite bench and you should come up and sit on it. It's very comfortable,
Yeah.
and it's so people who are waiting for the bus can have a place to sort of sit and wait, and it's really nice. But like you said, there was no
Yeah.
fanfare.
Yeah, they
it was
just
just
came
like
up and
the bench
installed it,
shows
yeah.
up. And
Yeah.
then there it is. And they do a lot of projects like that around the community that, they're unsung heroes.
And they help us when we do at Christmas time when we do the kids movie, when we sponsor the kids
Yeah,
movie
yeah.
at the movie theater. They're the ones that bake all the cookies that the kids have afterwards, and they help
I
out
thought
with
you baked the cookies.
Since you know how much I love to cook.
Another myth
yes,
shattered.
another myth shattered. Yes, no.
Anyway.
The Women's Club bakes all the cookies.
Oh, that's great.
So-
All right.
But we have a big event, or you have a big event coming up at Main Street Arts.
We do. We actually have a number, but the one of which we are speaking now is we have
Well, we
a
can go on
silent
to
and
others.
live auction That is September 22nd. It benefits Main Street Arts. The goal is to continue to offer the kind of programming that we've been offering around the community and classes and activities. But it looks like it's going to be a wonderful event. Last year we started doing a sort of review format, so there are a number of wonderful singers and performers. We're going to be, we've always been, if you've been to Main Street Arts during a production, we've always been short on bathrooms. And there's typically a long line at intermission for the bathroom, and one of the fundraisers is to try and get another bathroom into the facility.
Really? That's a great idea.
So we're hoping to be able, at the end of this, we had a flood this past year. We had, during the deep freeze, we had a sprinkler let go, and so our kitchen and art room is kind of totally stripped right now and has no floor or ceiling or wall. And we're going to try and put that back together. So we're really hoping that we A, have a phenomenal time, and B, raise a little money. And there's a lot of artwork and wonderful gifts from around the community. Artists always amaze me in that they are not typically the wealthiest people earning the most money, but they always contribute these beautiful pieces that we get to bid on and so on. So, Bill Stevens is going to be our auctioneer this year. Very excited about that. I think he's.
So how's it work? Do people come in? Is there food involved, or
there is food? It's a catered event. I think the food. Sarah DiBernardo is doing the food. I think it's going to be wonderful. It's food and drink, and then there are the performances. Interwoven.
Okay, so like you do some.
So we'll auction a few items. We'll
and
do a song. We'll auction a few items. Do a song. Do a little performance. A few more items. There's a silent auction and a live auction. I am not the most. Last year was my first auction ever, so I'm an auction neophyte.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of. We had a lot of fun last year, so it's a fun event.
Yeah. So people can basically come and spend the evening. It is like a party.
Yeah, I think it actually starts. Does it say 5?
It's 5 o'clock, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty lengthy event. What with the food and the entertainment and the auction, and we had so many people. All the entertainers volunteer. They're part of our core of performers, which keeps growing, and we have something like 14 pieces. So at the end of the auction, if you want to stay and see a few extras. We're going to continue the performance on a little into the evening.
So it's almost it's not what's it called? It's not an open mic. Is it? Would you call it an open mic?
It's almost a review. If what we did was took all the pieces and just put them together and ran it, it would be a review. Oh. But we're really breaking it up with the auction, and as I say, it was just so much fun last year. And auctions are fun. Seeing people vie back and forth.
Yeah,
They're fun, but they can get kind of. I mean, if you're that's the one thing with sometimes when you go to these live auctions is they get kind of dry. Like after a while, it gets kind of boring. So breaking it up, I think,
with the music is going to be
good.
Yeah.
It was. I didn't. As I say, I've only been to one.
Now, have you kind of staged your auction items so that the best auction items are at the end, or so people have to stay, or are you not doing it that way?
Sort of, maybe.
Okay.
So again, that's not my. I handle the entertainment.
Right.
So
you're not in the.
We do. I would love to mention we have a brand new premiere of a show coming up in November. It's called Charles Henry's Final Curtain. We actually have the world's largest collection of Charles Henry painted theatrical curtains. He was he was an itinerant vaudevillian in the late 1800s, early 1900s. He would go all around New England, but especially in Vermont, he would perform and he would paint curtains. And he traveled with his family. He wrote all the plays. He directed the whole thing. He performed. He played instruments. The family played instruments. So Cass Morgan, who is one of our board members, who's actually a Tony Award nominated playwright for Pump Boys and Dinettes on Broadway and a Broadway performer, she became interested in his life and wanted to write an original musical, vaudeville, so we're doing a vaudeville about a
That sounds-
vaudevillian.
Yeah, that sounds
And
like a lot of fun.
it's a brand new world premiere musical. It's going to open middle of November, and we just started rehearsals last night.
And what's it called again?
Charles Henry's Final Curtain. It's about his last performance as he leaves the stage.
Oh, neat.
He ended up running the Opera House in Vergennes after he stopped touring. Didn't last very long. It was the beginning of World War I, which is also a backdrop for the show.
Oh.
Very, very interesting.
And that's going to be at Main Street Arts?
And
or
that's at Main Street Arts.
Okay.
But, and I don't, maybe, you sort of jogged my memory, is that is the, Main Street Arts was maybe before your time, as that was one of the things they talked about, was that they had this collection of curtains that they had to preserve.
It became a thing. There's a woman, Chris Hadsell, who went around New England finding these curtains and preserving them. So all of our curtains, we have 23 pieces of Charles Henry scenery, 8 full curtains, and then a whole bunch of little, what they call ears or raw painted pieces. Apparently, I mean, nobody knows exactly where everything is. Ours were,
Right.
dug out of the attic and so on like that. But at the moment, we have, and he really is the foremost scenic artist, vaudevillian in New England, and, not the only, but really one of the few. And it's a holding. So back some 5 years ago, they did a celebration of that, and they
that's what I
did
remember.
5 original curtains at that
that's-
time.
that
Charlie
I
Hunter
remember,
painted
yeah.
one, Julia Zanes painted one, Michelle Rattay painted. Anyway, so we did a new series.
Yeah.
So we have these 5 new curtains that were added to the collection.
Neat. That's really,
So where does the collection just live at Main Street Arts? Is it something that you can display? Probably you need a huge
Well, we're going to
space.
display there. Each curtain is 9 by 20 feet.
So I was going to say,
Whoa,
you got to have
yeah.
some space.
So I think we're going to put one up at Popolo as we come toward this production for a while, and we're going to have one at Phelps Barn in Grafton, just so people can see them.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully not spill wine on them or
Right.
anything like that. The Smithsonian actually was interested in one
I
of
would
them.
imagine, yeah.
This winter painting, winter scene. It's all glittery. It was done with mica. He actually took fragments of mica and pressed them into the paint for snow glitter, which is, I guess, a technique that was used back in 1910 or so.
Right.
But
Before they had 3 big screens behind them that they could do.
that
just
they could do whatever they wanted.
with.
Add
was
the
actually-
glitter, Alex.
Add the glitter, yes.
It was
We
the
want to
practical. It
sparkle.
was a real practical thing. I'm just, you really piqued my curiosity, because that's such a visual thing. That might make a really nice.
So yeah, we're
TV
using.
special.
Yeah.
If you were, if you knew someone that worked at a public access TV station and that
Ooh.
might be interested in like doing a show.
A
or
show
something.
about that.
Show about
Yeah.
all the curtains. Do the
Of
curtains
all the
like?
curtains.
Do the
Wouldn't
curtains
that-
do they kind of tell a story, or do they kind of tell
Well,
the
each
story
one
of
must have
his
been the
life?
backdrop of a scene.
Of a
right?
scene.
skit.
So we have a dungeon and a forest and there's one, the Grand Drape, which is sort of, if you ever when you go to a theater, they often will have a fancy drape that's in the front before the show opens. So he painted a very elegant, decorative, drapey, gold and red and so on like that. That's just the opening curtain, and then behind that we have.
And did they just come up? They were like raised vertically,
Yep.
basically.
It's as low tech as you could possibly imagine.
That's neat. That's really cool.
And some of them are on these original rollers that look like, old barrel staves. They're rollers made out of individual little pieces of wood that really must be like 1910.
Yeah, I would be interested in seeing that myself, but I don't know. I'm
Mike
just weird.
Mike is a wealth of
I'm just
things like
I'm
that.
weird.
Yeah.
And when it comes to, it's nice to sit here and talk and hear you describe these things, but if you could imagine if we could see a
See
picture of it, would that be something? That would be
That'd be very
maybe
cool, but
somebody
you-
should invent something that projects pictures over the air so that you could sit in your
You-
living room and you could
see
see
these
these
things.
pictures in a box.
Wow.
That'd be something, wouldn't it?
Imagine that.
Imagine that.
Imagine that.
Because I was thinking as we were talking, the other thing that might be interesting would be if you had photos of the items for your auction.
That is happening.
Oh, okay.
That's happening. Items are being photoed and they're going to go up online
Great.
so people
Or
can
they
see
might
them.
even be able to go on Fact TV and
They might.
be between shows where the people
If
would
Fact
say,
TV is willing to do that, we would love to. We're just,
I don't know,
we're
I'm
just
not
getting on it
volunteering,
now.
but I was just thinking, that's those visual things, you know?
So you have, speaking of big performances, have you been, it's public knowledge of what you're doing for your big performance at the Opera House,
We're doing
correct?
Chicago.
Yeah.
Wow.
At the Opera House in March. It's gonna be really big. Actually, it's our smallest cast. It's a 26-person cast. Last year was a 46-person cast, which is both hard and exciting. It's hard to not use people who are wonderful people who you've grown really close to, and it's great to be able to do deep work with people who you can really pay attention to because
Mhm.
you're not
You don't have
trying to
thousands.
organize so many people. So we're very excited. It's a real dance show, and so we've really honed in on our really strong and developed a core of really strong
Mhm.
dancers. So
I know, I'm
great.
excited. Any of the performances that have happened at the Opera House have been, I'm going to be honest, they've spoiled me a little bit for Weston. I went to see, I know, I went to see, what did I go see back at the end of the summer? The one I'd been waiting to,
West Side Story.
West Side Story. I'd been waiting, as in all my years of going to Weston, that was the one musical that I'd been waiting for it to come to Weston. And I went to the performance, I don't know, it was one of their last performances. And it was good, but I was kind of watching the performance going, I think David would have done it better.
See, you're getting
Aw.
I really,
he's
yeah.
turning red. Look at
I
him.
really, and you know, I just,
You're not.
If I start sweating profusely, we'll have to stop.
Yeah.
so if somebody
Well, that's
wants to
very
go to Lights Camera Auction, how do they do that?
Tickets, you can get tickets online at mainstreetarts.org. That's how you can do it. And there's the
amazing.
phone number, and tickets are $25 a person, which when you think about the fact that it's catered food, that's really
That's
quite
right. Yeah.
Catered
Quite
food and
reasonable.
entertainment, I think that's
and
the key.
entertainment. It really is going to be a wonderful, fun evening. The songs maybe I'll give you a sneak.
Come on,
we're
please.
doing a redo of a piece from Urinetown to promote the bathroom. We're pretty excited about it.
Potty humor.
Yeah.
that's great.
So it's going to be a lot of fun, and they're wonderful voices, and really going to be a good show.
And all of the money, again, just want to reiterate, because sometimes people forget that these auctions go, like the money goes right back into Main Street Arts.
Well, we're
into-
hoping, yeah,
into
we're
making
hoping
Main
to
Street
put our
Arts
art
better.
room back together and get a bathroom in there and put walls on the kitchen. We're hoping to create a commercial kitchen, which would allow us to have a liquor license where we could sell a glass of wine at an art opening or at an event, and so on like that, which we think would really be nice and that patrons would really enjoy. So.
But you have to have a commercial.
You have to have a commercial
That's-
kitchen because you have to be licensed to serve food because you can't serve alcohol unless you serve,
Serve food, yeah.
Boy,
Yep.
It's a long
So-
chain.
It
It's
is
a
a
long
long
chain.
chain,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep, you can't just throw some popcorn and peanuts out there.
Well, yeah, that's what I was thinking.
No,
You know,
nope, got to be real
cooler
food.
beer and, you know. some
But I'm
popcorn.
excited because we would like to do cooking classes and like to really use the
Mhm,
commercial
mhm,
kitchen
yeah.
much more fully. We use our kitchen all the time, but if we could have a real
Real
kitchen,
kitchen,
that would
yeah.
be great. So
So
one
give-
step at a time.
Really suggest people get out and support it. Also, what are some of the programs? You mentioned that you have like education and things going on at Main Street Arts, because that sometimes gets overlooked, I think,
We have
for
a
the
huge slew of
productions.
classes coming
Yeah.
up, from fairy houses to life drawing to I'm teaching a bonsai class, I'm doing a homeschooling theater class. We have colored pencil workshops going on, just all manner of education class. You can go online again to mainstreetarts.org, and there's a pull down tab for education. You can see all the offerings there. And we have a couple of other shows coming up. We have a Moth, similar to the Moth, a storytelling evening
Oh,
coming up.
really?
Yeah, this is the third or fourth year we've been doing the
Mhm.
storytelling. We have a series called Taste of the Arts that we'll be doing again, which is a food combined with a local artist who comes and shares their process and talks about their journey through art. And we have a meal together, and then they sit and share a talk. And typically we do that as a series. There's a whole
Yes.
bunch of stuff.
Well, that's good. That's, I mean, you can elaborate. You don't have to rush through it.
You mean Oh, you mean me?
Yes, because you seem to know these things. We don't.
Yeah. Well, now I'm out. I have
Oh,
nothing.
yeah, okay.
So,
Guess that's it, folks.
But I think one thing that's important for people to know is that there's so much more at Main Street Arts. I think most people now just associate Main Street Arts with your big production. They think that's all that you do, and I think that they don't realize what a little gem all the things that
That
you
there's
do
something
do.
happening all
There's
the
something
time.
happening,
Yeah.
and kind of something happening for everybody. You have a lot for kids, right?
we
You have
do.
a diverse amount of offerings and exposure for I had never been to the bookstore, and I went to a book reading just on a whim a couple Friday nights ago, and Arthur came down and talked about his process. He was an author I happened to have read, and it was just neat. It was like something I was like, oh, I don't know how it's going to be, and it was surprisingly really interesting to hear him talk about his process of writing. So when you were talking about the artists' dinners, that's a similar type thing to really something that you just might not think of or think that you would find interesting. I bet a lot
One
of
of
people
my
would
favorite evenings of the last few years, Eugene Friesen came
Mm-hmm.
and shared his process at a Taste of the Arts, and he played his. He was able to talk and walk us through, some of the sequence of his development as a cellist. So
Wow.
he began
That's
as a
everything.
classical cellist, and he played some classical pieces, and then he became much more experimental, and he worked with the Paul Winter Consort, and he became an improvisational jazz cellist, and then he got into a thing. He did some children's work, and he created a character called Cello Man with a
Oh, I
mask
didn't know
that he
that,
had
yeah.
made, and so on like that, and he became Cello Man. It was a stunning
I'll bet. yeah.
evening, and those things are really
they're
wonderful.
unique and they're
And hard.
unique.
Yeah.
And I hear all the time, I was somewhere the other day in a group setting, and the word Bells Falls came up, and someone said, "There's nothing to do in Bells Falls," and I'm like, that just cranks me. So I said, "Are you kidding me?" I said, first of all, have you ever looked? Because there's a ton of things to do in Bells Falls, Saxons River, all around. There's a lot of really unique offerings. There's a lot of people that are doing some really fun things, and they're usually not high cost. They're usually not hugely expensive. And I think there's a lot of opportunity out there. You just have to look for it.
Yeah. And to be honest, some of this stuff is pretty well hidden.
Well, that's some of it. You really do have to
Yeah, you
look.
really
You
have
have
to
to
look.
know. You
I
have to
mean,
know.
I-
You do.
Not to digress too much, but we just were working on the Cellar Hole Investigators, and we did the Czar Bradley Law Office last week, which is an amazing place, and that is right on the main street in Westminster. That looks like nothing. And if someone hadn't told me that it was there, if the Cellar Hole Investigators hadn't said, "Oh, this is really interesting," I would have never even known it was there. Have you ever heard of it?
I have heard of it.
You've heard of it because you've heard of us talking
Well,
about it.
because Chris was telling me about it.
But it's a hidden gem. It's like one of these things like,
Shameless plug for his
yeah,
upcoming
shameless
show.
plug for my show that's
Yeah.
coming up next week. But it really was, though. I was really surprised.
Are you doing the Bradley Law Office this coming week?
Yes.
Yeah.
We're going to
Well,
be
what a
really-
coincidence.
Well, the Cellar Hole Investigators. That's the,
The Cellar
whole.
Hole
Right,
That's
no,
the whole.
no,
yeah,
no, yeah.
They're
I
coming
know.
out
What a
with their-
coincidence.
Yeah.
I think, but we in the arts, we actually sometimes talk about what a glut of organizations and creative, because the Stone Church is right there
Oh,
doing
yeah, that's
wonderful
true.
work, and we're out in Saxons River, and Next Stage is down in Putney, and all over the place there are companies that are putting out in Yellow Barn, and so there's, if you want to listen to music, if you want to see a show, if you want to listen to somebody speak, there is a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're right. It is hard because it just happens that they're happening at the same time, so you have to pick and choose. But
And the
they are,
Westin.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But then on the flip side, there's enough variety that hopefully everyone's finding their niche, and it seems like everyone's. I'm sure it's a struggle, but everyone's keeping moving on.
Yeah, we have actually added a classical music program, music in quarter time. We're
Really?
going to have pieces every quarter of the year. So we have a Cameo Baroque is our first performance coming up. They're a wonderful Baroque ensemble, and they're coming down from Hanover, and they're going to be performing. So there's Again, there's
Yeah,
stuff all the
All
time.
the time.
What texture?
But the most important thing is you want to come to is Lights Camera Auction. It's Saturday the 22nd. Doors open at 5:30. Tickets available at mainstreetarts.org. It's not just an auction, it's an auction and entertainment.
A lot of fun.
From
A lot
both
of fun.
your
I
entertainers
promise.
and from your auctioneer, because
Yeah.
he can be a bit
'Cause he's quite entertaining.
He's quite entertaining. So you want to tell the audience what we have coming up next week?
Oh, next week we're as a, the Cellar Hole Investigators is actually a spin-off from the feed. I didn't know if you knew that. But
Well, because they
so
came and did one, right?
Yeah.
And
Well, they did a couple.
magic
Well,
happened.
they're coming back. Jesse and Bob Haas are coming back next week, and they're going to talk about the Spanish influenza flu, the Spanish influenza epidemic of the early 1900s, and how it affected Vermont. I know that may sound a little dry.
I
but
have a feeling it's going to be
I'm
very
excited.
interesting. Very interesting.
It is going to be very interesting.
So that's next week on the feed.
All right, and I think that's it for today. We'll see you next week when we talk about the Spanish influenza epidemic, and
I think it's better to say Spanish flu. Influenza
Yeah.
sounds,
I like, anyway.
Bye,
See you,
Keith.
Bellows Falls.
Bye-bye.
That's it, folks, for the feed. Be sure to catch us every Wednesdays at 7:30 a.m. Also, find us on Facebook at Fact TV or tell us what you think. thefeed8@gmail.com. And don't forget to watch the feed online at www.fact8.com.